The café was already loud for 7:30 in the morning. Cups clinked, the espresso machine hissed, and tired voices floated through the air like background noise. No one paid attention to. Daniel stood near the window with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, holding her small hand while balancing a worn backpack on his shoulder. Lily was half asleep, her head resting against his arm, her pink jacket zipped up crookedly because she'd rushed him that morning. Daniel hated mornings like this, not because of the café, but because every morning reminded him how carefully he had to count every dollar. He had exactly enough cash for one small black coffee and a plain bagel. That was it. Payday was still 2 days away, and his fridge at home was already nearly empty. He glanced at the counter, waiting for his turn, when he noticed the woman ahead of him. She didn't look out of place, yet somehow she did. Her coat was elegant but simple, dark gray, perfectly pressed. No flashy jewelry, no designer bag screaming for attention. Her hair was tied back neatly, and her posture carried a quiet confidence that didn't beg to be noticed. She ordered a regular coffee, nothing fancy, and pulled out her card. The barista swiped it once. Then again, a frown crossed the barista's face. "I'm sorry, ma'am. It says declined." The woman blinked, surprised but not embarrassed. "That's strange. Could you try again?" The barista did. Same result. "I'm really sorry," the barista said, her tone already shifting to impatience as the line grew longer. "It's still declined." The café seemed to pause for half a second before the whispers started. Someone behind Daniel sighed loudly. Another person checked their watch. A man muttered something about people holding up the line. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out another card. "Try this one, please." Declined again? For the first time, color rose to her cheeks. Not shame, but confusion. She opened her wallet, checking it as if the answer might magically appear inside. Then she looked up, calm but clearly unsettled. "I'm sorry. I must have left my cash in another bag." The barista shrugged. "I can't give you the coffee unless it's paid for." "I understand," the woman said softly. "Thank you." She stepped aside, letting the next person move forward. Her shoulders still straight, but her eyes briefly dropping to the floor. Daniel watched all of this silently. He wasn't sure why it bothered him so much. Maybe it was the way everyone immediately assumed something about her. Maybe it was how familiar that moment felt. He'd been there more times than he could count. Card declined. Wallet empty, strangers judging without knowing the story. He looked down at Lily. She was awake now, watching the woman with curious eyes. "Daddy," she whispered, tugging his sleeve. "Why didn't she get her coffee?" Daniel swallowed. He reached into his pocket and felt the thin bills folded inside. Enough for his coffee. Enough for the bagel Lily liked. Not enough for both. And definitely not enough to be generous. The line moved forward. Daniel was next. The woman stood off to the side, pretending to scroll on her phone, though her screen was clearly dark. Daniel took a breath. He didn't think about rent or groceries, or how tired he was of choosing between needs every day. He just thought about how small kindnesses had saved him before. How one person paying for his meal months ago had been the only reason he'd eaten that night. "Excuse me," he said, stepping toward the counter. "I'll pay for her coffee too." The barista looked at him, surprised. "You're sure?" Daniel nodded and placed his money on the counter. His hand shook slightly, not from doubt, but from the weight of the decision. The woman turned sharply. "Oh, you don't have to." "It's okay," Daniel said quickly, offering a small, awkward smile. "Really?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Thank you? That's very kind of you." Her voice was warm, genuine, not the polite kind people used out of obligation. Daniel ordered his coffee and skipped the bagel. Lily didn't complain. She never did. As they waited, the woman stood beside them. "Is she your daughter?" she asked, looking at Lily. "Yes," Daniel replied. "Lily." "I'm Margaret," the woman said, crouching slightly to Lily's level. "Nice to meet you." Lily smiled shyly. "My daddy is nice," she said seriously. "He helps people." Daniel felt his throat tighten. Margaret straightened and met Daniel's eyes. "She's right." Their coffees were ready. Margaret took her cup and paused. "Please let me repay you somehow." Daniel shook his head. No need. It's just coffee. She studied him for a moment as if committing his face to memory. Sometimes just coffee is more than that. They parted ways at the door. Daniel walked Lily to the bus stop, his mind already shifting back to the day ahead, his shift at the warehouse. The endless lifting, the aching back, the low pay that barely covered child care and rent. He forgot about Margaret by lunchtime. What Daniel didn't know was that Margaret didn't forget him for a second. She sat in her car across the street from the café, hands wrapped around the warm cup, staring at the lid without drinking. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant. Cards reactivated. Fraud alert resolved. Sorry for the inconvenience. Margaret exhaled slowly. She wasn't embarrassed about the declined card. She'd faced worse boardrooms, harsher negotiations. What unsettled her was the man, with tired eyes and worn shoes, who had paid without hesitation. Margaret Hale was the CEO of Hale Industries, a multinational company worth billions. That morning, she hadn't been heading to the office. She'd been on her way to quietly observe one of the company's newest warehouse. Operations unannounced, unrecognized. Exactly how she liked it. She believed people showed their true values when they thought no one important was watching. And that single dad in the cafe had just passed a test he didn't know existed. 2 days later, Daniel was called into the warehouse office near the end of his shift. His stomach dropped immediately. Being called in rarely meant good news. Inside, his supervisor stood stiffly beside a woman in a tailored suit. Daniel froze. It was Margaret. He assumed instantly that something was wrong. Maybe he'd broken a rule. Maybe someone complained. His heart raced as he tried to remember every move he'd made that week. Daniel, his supervisor said nervously, "This is..." "I know who she is," Daniel said quietly, staring at Margaret. From the cafe. Margaret smiled, but there was something deeper in her eyes now. "And I know who you are too." The supervisor cleared his throat. "Miss Hale wanted to speak with you privately." Daniel sat, hands clasped tightly in his lap. Margaret didn't waste time. "Do you know who I am?" Daniel hesitated, then shook his head. "No, ma'am. I just know you didn't get your coffee." She laughed softly. "Fair enough. I'm the CEO of this company." The words hit him like a wave. "I'm not here because of your work performance," she continued. "I reviewed your file. You're reliable, punctual, no complaints." Daniel nodded slowly, still trying to process. "I'm here because of who you were outside of work," Margaret said. In a moment when you had every reason to look away, she explained everything: the declined card, the fraud alert, her habit of observing without being known. "I didn't help you because of who you were," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't know." "That's exactly why it mattered," Margaret replied. She offered him an opportunity, not charity, not a handout, but a position in a new training and logistics program the company was launching. Better pay, stable hours, health benefits that would cover Lily, a future. Daniel stared at the papers in front of him, eyes burning. "Why me?" Margaret leaned forward. "Because companies are built on numbers, but they survive on people. And I need people who don't forget that." Daniel signed with trembling hands. That night, he made dinner for Lily without worrying how much was left in his account. He tucked her into bed, and when she asked why he was smiling so much, he kissed her forehead. "Because being kind matters," he said, "even when no one's watching." And somewhere across the city, a CEO sipped her coffee, knowing that a single moment of quiet kindness had changed 2 lives forever.